and welcome to the fifth episode installment of Baldur's Gate Baldur's Gate 3 Lore Through. Let's see, where were we? Archivist, yes. So, it's been a little while since I last streamed, recorded, and therefore my memory might not be perfect as to what was going on in the last session, but I believe that we dealt with the druids. And if I am correct, we displaced Korga as the de facto leader of the druids. Let's see, did we? Yes, we did, that's right, because Loic fell in battle, as did Wrath. So yeah, we dealt with the Shadow Druids. So, today, what I think we're going to be doing is venturing forth to find out some more about this cult or alternative religious movement that we've been hearing something about. So we've heard and encountered another person who has a Mind Flayer tadpole. It was a dwarf who was dying, and the people who were with him, his companions, were talking to us about this, about him being a true soul, about them having a certain degree of loyalty to him as a true soul, in his capacity as a true soul, and about how they were acolytes learning about the Absolute. We also, I believe, let's have a little look. I think, yes, here we go. It's right in front of me. So we freed the goblin Saza from the Druid's Grove. She was presenting in much the standard way that you would expect from a goblin within the Forgotten Realms. But she was also specifically talking about this idea of the Absolute, and was talking about the Absolute as being a new goddess that this group of goblins is following. Now, the Absolute is not a deity that is within the Forgotten Realms lore, in the sense that it is not an entity that our characters have encountered or heard of before. So this is why we might want to call this a new religious movement, because it seems to be revering a hitherto unknown deity. This deity seems to be associated with a sense of absolute control or authority, particularly through the presence of the brand that is placed on a lot of the goblins we've encountered, a brand which seems to resonate with our Mind Flayer powers, such that we are able to... I actually should switch to the game so I can show you what's happening in the game. So, yes, this brand seems to resonate with our Mind Flayer powers, that in such a way that it seems to allow us to issue commands. And there seems to be a limit on that. We can't do it without taking some form of rest or recovery or recuperation, but this seems to be a thing. So, we need to find out more about this alternative religious movement / cult. And we know from our good friend Saza that they have a camp, which is somewhere here, I think. Yes. And that is also the direction we need to go in if we wish to follow the trail of the lost druid Halsin.
Since the abduction, I must reek of a living slime.
Sure, but think of the stories you'll be able to tell.
we're heading towards the encampment. Now, hopefully, our good friend Saza will make good on her promise and help us to navigate around that space. But we shall see.
I'll tell the gods what's what.
Oh, and there she is, our wonderful friend.
Goblins ahead.
Well, look what the rat dragged in.
Can it? I know something Raglan will want to hear.
Yeah? What's that?
I've been in some druid's grove. This one sprang me. Now move over so I can tell Raglan myself.
Hold on. Where are the raiders?
Dead. Every last one.
Raglan's drow friend won't be happy to hear that.
She'll be happy enough when I tell her where them Lucas is holding up. Let me through.
Hold on now. Is it true what Saz says? You helped her escape that grove?
Yes, I don't believe in keeping prisoners.
Then behave while you're inside. Our people don't mind it one bit.
That's enough out of you. Come on. Gotta let the drow know where them Lucas is. We'll be heroes.
Okay, so, yeah, this guy, Sentinel Olak, made this point about the goblins don't mind keeping prisoners. The goblins also don't mind keeping slaves. So if we look at what's going on or how the goblins are presented in source material such as Volo's Guide to Monsters, we hear that goblins have this sense of inferiority, in the sense that they understand themselves to be weak compared to a lot of the other more dominant races across the Forgotten Realms. And that's partially because of their stature, but also because of their comparative lack of sophistication, in the sense that they are rather easily beaten by, for example, elven civilizations or dwarven civilizations, which have much more of kind of a sense of advanced culture. And because of this sense of advanced culture, there's a sense of organization compared to which goblins are considered to be basically primitives. Excuse me. So, one of the ways that they deal with this is basically that they seek out other means of reinforcing their own strength. And that is primarily done through the taming of wild animals. So, for example, wargs. I think if we turn ourselves back in this direction, wargs. Here they are. Spelt slightly differently to the Tolkien warg, but you know, copyright is a thing. So, or maybe it's the other way around. Are these wargs and they're wargs in Tolkien? Who knows? Anyway, they do this, and they use these kind of animals. They also use other animals as well. The wargs are basically one of the main ones, the kind of quintessential tamed beasts. But they also operate through slavery. So goblin culture, insofar as it's presented within the Forgotten Realms, is something that is focused on the acquisition and control of other beings and other living things in order to sustain themselves. And this is actually a consequence of, again, some religious stuff. Which is to say that, as we've been talking about with a few other races, a lot of the reasons that the races of Forgotten Realms are in the situations that they are is because of the gods that made those races. So, to my knowledge, human beings are not presented as having a creator deity in the same way that other races are. And that's partially because human beings are treated as the default and all other races are in some way modifications of them. Which makes some creative sense when you think about the fact that the people making this game are obviously going to be human beings. People creating this world are human beings. Ed Greenwood, who is the effectively founder of Forgotten Realms, is a human being, and therefore human as the default is, you know, anyone who's experienced this kind of fantasy or science fiction understands what that kind of means. But what this then means is that the derivations or the separations from human, whether they are on the kind of quote-unquote civilized side, like the dwarves or the elves, or the monstrous side, such as the goblins and the orc and all of that, they are defined by religion, and specifically by gods. So it's a kind of top-down system rather than a bottom-up system. Even though Forgotten Realms does have this metaphysics where the gods are reliant on belief, that in and of itself, that system, isn't actually isn't a kind of fundamental principle that's always been there. That was a caveat to divinity that has been added rather recently by the Overgod, and that's as a result of some of the stuff that happened before the Time of Troubles, when the Overgod got really effectively pissed off with everybody and threw all the gods down into the mortal world for a while before eventually rectifying that. But basically, take for example the dwarves. They were created by Moradin. The elves were created by Corellon Lorethien. They are the offspring, in a sense, whether they're presented as the literal, like physical, biological children, or it's a more spiritual form of creation. Like a lot of the elven creation myths, for example, Corellon Lorethien is, although nearly always presented in a masculine way, there's a lot of lore surrounding them as a kind of gender fluid, genderqueer figure that is constantly shifting form and shifting shape. The background lore, the way that Corellon is written, doesn't really play with those ideas, which may be a reflection of the attitudes towards gender, the attitudes towards identity that were maybe constraining or conditioning the people who were writing this. But it used to be, according to certain origin myths, that the elves were also these kind of genderless, formless spirits, that they could switch between genders very easily and very fluidly, and that part of their origin as a mortal race is that they departed from this and they assumed fixed form. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. But the reason the goblins are the way that they are, excuse me, is, according to the origin story, is that all of the goblinoids, so that's goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears, were completely distinct. They had their own faiths and different customs and cultures, and that it was Maglubiet, the conquering god, who basically pulled them all under his control. So what the goblinoids were before this this conquest, is a kind of distant, lost memory. And now the defining feature of goblin culture is that they follow Maglubiet. Now, of course, the goblins we're encountering here are an exception to this rule. And it's a notable exception, because Maglubiet is sort of the defining deity. So, I don't think there's anything more to add on that at the moment. So, yeah, basically this is our time spent in this encampment is going to be preoccupied with discussing goblins in various ways. Hey, Smurf.
ability that you've used on others, only infinitely stronger. Your vision clouds, leaving you in a dark, featureless shadowscape, nothingness in every direction. Then there are three figures before you. An armored male elf exuding power and command. A handsome younger man with a quick, easy smile. And a pale young woman with even paler eyes.
These are my chosen. They speak for me. Aid their search for the weapon, and you will be worthy to stand beside them in my presence.
The visions fade and the voice falters as a strange energy swells around you. The many-sided artifact. Somehow you understand its repelling presence.
My power grows. My forces scatter. The reckoning draws near.
That thing's shielding us. Incredible.
Let's examine the artifact.
Whatever power the artifact possesses, it shows no sign of it now.
So, the artifact is something we haven't really talked about, and I suppose it's because there's not really much to say about it yet. But this artifact is something that Shadowheart had on her when she was captured by the Mind Flayers, and she retrieved it from the pod when we released her, and she's been carrying it since. Now, this artifact moved over to us. It seems to have chosen us to be its bearer. And we just had an encounter, presumably, with a goddess, right? So the Absolute was basically using her authority on us, just as we've used that same influence on others. And the result is that we were almost overpowered, almost just commanded to obey her. And it's only through this strange artifact that Shadowheart possessed that we are now shielded from the voice of the Absolute. Oh, there's lots of items over here. Ah, it's Volo, how wonderful.
Oh, a stranger, you know. There, come. Become or be you beheaded. Goblin kind will tease you and throat you and redden. His name is Raglan, his voice absolute. His truth will disarm you and draw you the truth. Laugh if you dare, recoil if you must. A new age is dawning with goblins at trust. Mountains, great mortals, all hinders to quake. The true souls are coming, the louders awake. Here follow my power and might for great glory.
Volo's really annoying. Right, let's talk to him.
With fragulous crown and with scepter abraid, draw Raglan, short work of the innkeeper made. The inn burnt to ash. The captives were many. Goblin kind had reduced them to cowering filthy. So raise it, your goblets, and drain them with pride. Draw Raglan, the true soul, had led you glad.
I reckon Draw Ragslin's the gobbo in charge, the way this one's carrying on.
Gobbo? Goodness. Let's cause some problems for Volo. Fragulous? Glide? I don't know this language.
Come on, you turnip!
What's that? No, excuse me. Draw Raglan, draw Raglan. I am draw Raglan. Tumptuous. Draw Raglan.
You broke it!
Wait. Draw Jackson, we pay, we...
Come on, pigeon. Back to your cage.
Oh, look what you've done.
Oh dear, have we caused problems for Volo on purpose? I could never.
Rip-off idiot.
So, here are the people we encountered earlier. It's, yeah, Brinna and Andric.
It's good to be among allies, isn't it? The Absolute's blessings have brought so many together.
Okay, oh, someone's chasing a chicken. So, let's have a look. We have a trader.
You look like you got something jingling in your pocket. Looking to spend it?
Let's see what you have. So, a few magic weapons, which is always nice. Oh, we've got some camp supplies. We have quite a lot of money, so let's just buy the camp supplies. Got anything to sell? And get rid of some of these extra weapons, maybe? Yes, right.
Keep moving. I've got other customers.
It is really interesting how the presentation of goblins in this game, and I mean, it's not restricted to this game, there are many other intellectual properties that seem to do this. He just said wargs, so it's wargs in this, wargs in Tolkien. We've solved it, we've cracked the code. So it's interesting how goblins in this have been so heavily influenced by Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like, the voices, the use of that particular way of speaking, that particular way of kind of the facial structure, like, so much of it. Like, this guy here, oh, he's peeing, good lord, leave him to his privacy. He looks like he could have been in Lord of the Rings. Like, the face shape reminds me, I can't remember what his name is. There's one of the orc in Lord of the Rings that looks like that, which I think is fascinating. It's really interesting how I mean, to my knowledge, that's where this comes from. But you know, there could be other examples. It could have a longer history than that. So this fellow here is a bugbear. So this is the largest of the three goblinoid sub-races. Yeah, bugbear, there we go. Hairy humanoids that crave carnage and treasure in equal measure. So again, we're getting quite the look into that. So, one of the things with bugbears is, I mean, we have the term bugbear in real life, and it kind of often refers to something that someone finds annoying or difficult or scary. Something that you often get preoccupied with can be described as a bugbear. They kind of serve, in the Forgotten Realms at least, the role of the kind of the boogeyman. So there are lots of different kind of superstitions about, you know, if you do this, you'll encounter a bugbear, or, you know, it's often the kind of thing that might be used in stories to frighten children. So bugbears are, like most goblins, often reliant on raiding. They tend to be nocturnal, relying on darkness. And they basically have this kind of simultaneous representation, which happens a lot, and it's particularly like a classist thing, as we've been talking about with with other kinds of goblin as well. They're simultaneously represented as being incredibly lazy, but also very organized. So the idea is that they're very kind of energetic in the sense that they're very savage, and that they are highly reliant on often explosive violence. They're also kind of consummate bullies, and they use their physical strength to push the less strong around. But they're also described as being incredibly lazy, which is often something that's used to describe kind of lower class people. that they're kind of uncultured, that they don't have a good work ethic, that they're kind of more prone to violence. There's a lot of stereotypes that cross over here. Of course, that intersectionally crosses with race in a lot of cases. So, um, all sorts of stereotypes around. I mean, you can look at the context of like the U.S. and you can look at representations of black people as being, lazy, as kind of, effectively kind of trying to mooch off the system, and a lot of kind of racist language has been used to suggest that kind of thing. I mean, for example, like when Trump was talking about Mexican immigrants, a lot of the language he was using was effectively describing them as, thieves or parasitic in some sense. But we won't get too into that. So the way that bugbears operate is very much a pack mentality, much more of a I guess, yeah, like they like being in gangs, and they operate in such a way that they will take advantage of the less strong. They don't tend to go and fight against strong opponents. They tend to just try and pick off people that they think they can easily bully. They do have their own gods, which is not really relevant to, like, we don't need to kind of explore it in full here. They do have their own deities, and they do recognize Maglubiet, with the idea being that Maglubiet is kind of the overall deity of the goblinoids as a whole. So, this fellow here, Guard Gergen, is an ogre. So much like the ogres we've encountered elsewhere, ogres are a form of giant. I think we discussed in the last, maybe it was the one before, when we were doing the Blighted Village. We met some ogres there. So this guy is going to be the muscle.
Let's see what Gus does.
Let's head inside.
Oi! Ain't no party in here. Shut it, Raw. Olak cleared us. Got a visitor for the drow, I do. My arse. What's a true soul want with any mate of yours? Private business, that is. Raiding business. But if anyone wants a piss pot guarded, we'll call. Just get your friend branded proper. Right, Sazza? Got better things to do than... No, you don't. Come on, then.
So again, there's a certain degree of crassness that is associated with goblins, which isn't to say it's necessarily a bad character trait. Like, there's certainly ways in which it can be amusing. The thing that I find difficult about it... Oh, off she goes. We'll catch up with her in a bit. The thing I find difficult about it is the way that the Forgotten Realms encodes this at the level of race. And it basically suggests that there is a kind of code of conduct that we can expect from different people of different races. The idea basically being that, well, we know what someone is going to think, we know how someone is going to act, or we can make a very good guess based on race. Now, of course, the game effectively conflates race and culture, or race and socialization to some degree, which makes some sense when you think, oh, if this person grew up in, for example, an elven society, they're going to have certain elven customs and mores, which is fine. But because the barriers are nearly always racial, it creates this world within which race becomes a very easily invoked shorthand for some of these things, which on the surface might seem fine, but it relies upon there being a much deeper racializing logic that's going on, which we've talked about a few times. But here we have some more goblins. So
Smells like burnt flesh in here.
let's talk to this lady, True Soul Gut.
Now here's somebody special. The Absolute has touched you, hasn't she? Priestess Gut needs to touch you too. Hold out your arm so I can mark your flesh.
A priestess. One of the leaders, no doubt about it. Let's make her squeal.
What's that? Tell your friend to keep quiet, or he'll lose his good eye.
So this is something that's really interesting as well. Will is generally presented as being like the hero. He is generally speaking like just a good guy who wants to do good things. And if you do evil things, he will not be very happy. And in fact, he is very willing to, in multiple different ways, sabotage those things, excuse me, or oppose them in other ways. But the thing is that the moment goblins get involved, there's a sadism there, right? There's a, oh well, it's a goblin, let's make them squeal. You know, these gobbos were the language that he's using. And I think that the fact that someone like Will is presented by the game nearly always as kind of unproblematically heroic, maybe a bit naive, but unproblematically heroic, and yet is still treating people this way, there's an almost endorsement for this, or at the very least a lack of criticism or critical reflection on this, because race is being used as this kind of shorthand. Let's say, ignore him. Tell me about the Mark Priestess.
Ready for the fire, are ya?
Why should I let you brand me?
Let's the faithful recognise one another quick sharp. That way nobody'll mess with ya. And it's charged with magic. Ordinary slobs can't see it. Only us that follow the absolute. You ready? Brace yourself. This'll sting.
Actually, I'd rather not go through with this.
Maybe you don't need it. After all, you're special, ain't ya? Like me.
She probes your mind, tangling your thoughts with hers. A familiar sensation. She too carries a parasite. Darkness seems to swallow the temple, leaving you with a vision of the Goblin Priestess receiving instruction from a handsome young man, one of the chosen. The vision dissolves away. You stand before the Goblin Priestess in the temple once again.
Let's push deeper into her mind.
Her faith floods into you, a tide of shuddering ecstasy. Her tadpole nestles within that mania, secure, hidden.
I feel you in there. Digging around. Works both ways. And I saw some weird shadows swimming around in your head just now. Maybe I can help with that. Us true souls gotta look out for one another.
Do you think you can fix whatever is causing those shadows?
With the Absolute's will, I can fix anything. Let's deal with this in my chapel. It's private. Don't want this lot interfering with true soul business.
Oi, priestess!
Okay, well we'll go and
Yeah. Ain't we good enough for the Absolute?
well, we'll deal with that shortly. Okay, let's go over here. So there's a prisoner called Liam.
Poor lad. I could give you peace, you know. But no. You gotta keep silent, don't you? Where do they flee to, you stubborn rat?
Please, stop!
Ah, here to see your friend, have ya? Come and join him if you like.
A strange symbol glows, marked on their flesh, and something within you stirs in response.
We're going to just deceive them ordinarily. Pray to Ogma. Praise be.
We do all the work, and you get to finish him? Bad. Take him. Won't do you any good. He just screams. Should have sent him to Moonrise with the rest, for all the good he's be. I want to watch that weird priest.
No, the rats are following him.
Sounded like he was speaking something.
Okay, let's try and talk to him. Liam.
Please! Let me out!
no reason for this.
How were you captured?
I was with a group of adventurers. We came here for an artifact. It's called the Night Song. We tried to sneak past the goblins, but they ambushed us. I didn't think a pack of goblins could be so efficient.
An artifact? What does it do?
I don't know. The boss didn't say. He just said some wizard called Leroican would reward us if we found it. It should be here somewhere. He said there was a hidden passage underneath the temple. The place was supposed to be abandoned. When we arrived.
What else do you know about the temple? Any other treasure?
I'm not sure. All I know is there's a passageway to the Night Song. Brian had instructions, but the goblins got him. They said they'd eat him. Please, these shackles. I don't want to die.
Well, one more question. What happened to the druid?
Halsin. I don't know. He changed into a bear, but I lost sight of him. I don't know if he's still alive. That's all I know. Please, get me out of here.
Relax, I'm not going to leave you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's pick the lock. With sleight of hand. Or let's try to. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
The lock clicks and opens.
Thank you. I better go before they catch us. I should be able to make it to the grove on my own. They need to know they're in danger.
What did the goblins want with you?
The grove. To the east. They wanted to know where we came from. No. They'll kill everyone. Please. I need to warn them.
Okay, bye. So there's a friend around here. Let's go and meet him.
What's up for discussion?
Greetings, child. I've met few aside from goblins here.
You recognize the scourge. This man is a follower of Leviata, goddess of pain.
Ah. Are you also here to assist with the prisoner?
You mean the one they are torturing?
Please. The things they do to that man, so crude and primitive. I was invited to teach them. I live for pain and its intricacies, you see. But, alas.
Pain without purpose is a terrible thing. Wouldn't you agree?
What's a follower of the Maiden of Pain doing here?
Ah. You are familiar with the Scourge Mistress. Good. I am simply spreading her message, friend. I worship her through pain, usually my own, but I have a skilled hand when it comes to its infliction. Care to expand your horizons? It will be worth it. You have my word.
Go on! I have to see this!
I am curious.
Oh, I have something exquisite.
Loviatar and I are interested in how you handle pain, dear one. And should you delight her, you will most assuredly receive her most gracious blessing. Trust me. Simply face the wall, and we can begin.
Very well.
Yes, this will do nicely. The pain you suffer will cleanse you. Do not fight it.
Let's yelp loudly and dramatically beg for mercy. Oh.
Your voice sounds so sweet, dear one. Keep going.
Oh, bravo!
Encore. Pain is proof that we live. Revel in it.
Let's exaggeratedly cry out.
That's it, dear one. Let Loviatar hear you.
It was a fine strike. Excellent form.
You are doing so well. Do not give in now.
Let's do another performance.
Yes, you can, child. Take the pain and offer it up to Loviatar. Offer it all. Sweet child, you bore the pain like a true believer. I am proud to have served you this penance.
Thank you, I enjoyed myself.
As did I, dear one. Loviatar herself found your performance inspiring. She has deemed you worthy of her blessing. And on a personal note, thank you. That was positively divine.
Okay, so Leviatar. Leviatar is a goddess. She is the goddess of pain, as this fellow Abdirak was telling us. We actually very briefly there saw her holy symbol when he was casting that blessing on us. Oh, these goblins won't shut up. When it appeared, it flashed up very briefly, but it was a 9-stranded whip. So Leviatar is an interesting goddess. So she's the goddess of pain, but not pain as something that is just inflicted onto others, but pain as it is experienced yourself. So she is the goddess of promoting kind of endurance and tolerance to pain, but also understanding that pain itself is a kind of gift. The idea basically being that pain can teach us, that pain reveals us to ourselves, and that through experiencing pain we push our bodies to a point where we can achieve a certain kind of spiritual enlightenment. So elements of her are kind of present in practices of religious mortification, or the kind of the mortification of the flesh, like the denial of the body, which has been practiced in various forms of Christianity and other faiths too, I think. I'm mainly familiar with the versions from Christianity which involve whipping oneself as penance for one's sins during prayer. And the idea is that pain is being a teacher here. It's not just inflicting pain for the sake of it. She doesn't want just pain for the sake of it. She wants pain as something that strengthens and as a lesson. So, historically, before the time of Troubles, Leviatar was associated with Baal, the god of murder, and the father of the Baal spawn that we've heard about in the previous few episodes. So she used to have a sister, a demigoddess, that was killed a very long time ago by Talona, who is the goddess of sickness and plague, which turned the two of them into enemies. So Leviatar is a minor goddess, and she has served a few different masters. So Baal was the first one. She also served Shah for a bit, so the kind of primordial goddess of darkness, and she has also served Bane, who is another member of the Dead Three, who is associated with tyranny, domination, and conquest. So the gods and goddesses that she hates are those who are associated with selflessness, such as Ilmater, and also gods such as Eldath, who is the god of peace, and Lyra, the goddess of joy. Basically, Leviatar's doctrine is one where you can earn rewards through suffering, and through how well you suffer, and through the strength that you demonstrate through your suffering. Without that, pain is kind of mundane, basically. So that's Leviatar.
Don't go bothering my pigeon. He's mine.
So I see. Do you have plans for this pigeon?
Keep him safe. Listen to him coo. Till I gets hungry or some such. What's it to ya?
Your pet is actually a rather famous writer.
Him? Nah.
I was admiring him. I'd like one of my own.
Then catch one on your own.
As the symbol glows, power courses through you. Authority.
I'm done talking. Open the cage or you'll be sorry.
All right, calm down. I don't want no trouble. Here's the key. Pigeon's all yours.
Okay.
Look at this. I'm quite safe. A joy to see a familiar face in such a precarious setting. I guarantee the story of your daring rescue of my person will live on for eons.
Get yourself to safety and quick.
I intend to do just that. A trusty invisibility potion goes a long way in a place like this. We mustn't tarry, but I hate for our friendship to end here. Please, won't you meet me once we've both slipped the goblin yoke?
Just gonna leave.
Well, I suppose this is goodbye, my friend. I wish you the greatest of luck, and I hope I shall recall you favorably in my records of the day's events. I'll slip away when the coast is clear, and I wish you the greatest possible luck in your mysterious endeavors. Ta!
Okay, goodbye. Volo is so irritating. Right, let's see. We want to go over here, I think. Let's go and see where Saza has headed.
A scrying eye. Best not do anything suspicious while I watch.
Mistress! It's me, your loyal servant, Saza. I'm back, and I brought a friend.
How thoughtful. And where did you find this friend?
They was in some rickety druid grove, mostly full of tieflings, but them intruders you're after were hiding out there.
I presume you dealt with my prey and massacred the rest.
Well, the thing about that is, they sort of massacred us. But this mug helped me to escape. I say we stick a few holes in him. Show how grateful we are.
You feel a cold hand caress your mind as the drow appraises you.
Oh dear. Your prisoner is one of the Absolute's favorites, Saza. A true soul.
Nah, a compy. They was in the grove, banging around with the tieflings.
Undercover, no doubt. Carrying out the Absolute's will. Oh, Saza, you have made a grave error. And it will be your last. My spiders are hungry, little one. But before they feast, tell me where that grove is. And I may yet spare your life.
It's past the bridge, to the east. Big old gate covered in ivy. Don't hurt me, mistress, please.
I will not hurt you. My spiders will have that pleasure.
No, I'm up, I'm sorry. But I didn't know who they was. They didn't tell me nothing.
She's telling the truth. She didn't know.
I told ya. I was trying to follow orders best I could.
Silence, wretch. And remember, you owe your miserable life to this one.
I won't cause any more trouble. I swears it.
Through sheer luck, that pathetic worm has brought me the information I need. And it seems that the inhabitants of the grove trust you. We can use that against them. You have a part to play in this slaughter. Return to the grove. When my raiding party approaches, throw open the gate and signal me.
The fate of the grove's inhabitants hangs in the balance. Killing the drow here would spare them, but it might be better to face her warband at the grove itself, on familiar ground. On the other hand, participating in the slaughter as she asks may be the perfect way to earn her trust and access to the cult's inner circle.
I'll get it done.
Good. Marshalling the goblins is no simple matter, but my warband will be ready to attack by next light. Once we are in position, we will wait for your signal, and then we will break them all.
Other raiders.
Yes, your ladyship. We won't let you down.
So, we've talked a little bit about the drow. So, the drow are a race of elf. We've talked about them before in terms of them being effectively the Dark Elves and how canonically, through most of the Forgotten Realms history, they have been effectively de facto evil, how they worship this spider goddess. Minthara is a servant of the Absolute who has left the faith of Lolth, but still has some trappings of that faith, clearly. So, for example, the familiarity with spiders, keeping them as pets, etc., that's down to that. But Karlak wants to talk.
Whoa, soldier. What did you just do?
Don't worry, I have a plan. The Druid's Grove will come to no harm.
Listen to me. I'm trusting you. But if you disappoint me, it'll be the last thing you do.
Noted. Thank you for sharing, Karlak. Okay. So, let's talk to this fellow.
Praise his ever-bleeding axe. Praise his throne of flaming iron. Praise Maglubiet.
You know Maglubiet, a tyrannical deity who treats his goblinoid followers as slaves.
Trying to interrupt my prayers? Scared of a real god? You're as goonless as the rest of them.
Cleric, my god is very real.
Good on ya. Don't matter to me if it's Shah, Garn, or my boy McLubby. It's about tradition. This upstart everyone's praising is gonna trample all over our gods and our faith. Makes me sick.
I assume you mean the Absolute.
Yeah. My old tribe's fallen for this shite. Traitorous bastards. The great Absolute brings us together. Drow and gnolls and goblins all braiding one another's hair. It's a load of shite.
So, the fact that all of these beings are united on relatively equal terms is really interesting from a lore perspective, because when you look at these different components, we talked about gnolls, right? Gnolls being effectively distant offspring of Yeenagu, the this demon lord. Gnolls being effectively physical incarnations of hunger that often can't control that desire in order to stop them from eating one another alive, are working with goblins, which for gnolls most of the time would just be another source of food. Also, it's worth noting that we have effectively three leaders. We've met two of them, but the three leaders here. We've got Priestess Gut, who is a goblin. We've heard a lot about Draw Razglin, who is a hobgoblin, which we'll meet shortly-ish. And then we have Minthara, who is a drow. Now, in drow society and in drow culture, particularly in the Lolthsworn society of Menzoberranzan, where she comes from, the drow are the master race. Every other race are considered basically to be lesser, and they're used as slaves. Goblins among them. Goblins are kind of quintessential slaves because they're easy to control for a group, a culture, a species as powerful as the drow. The fact that we have like an even footing here, roughly, is actually something that's quite remarkable, because that usually doesn't happen. You don't like your people mixing with outsiders?
Talking to you, ain't I? I just don't believe in all this togetherness and chumminess. Ain't natural. It won't last. They'll be tearing into each other soon enough. Sod 'em all. I'll wait it out in air, praying to a real god.
Okay, well, so there are still some traditionalists, it seems, but again, this guy is supportive of effectively a racialized division. But here we have Draw Razglin, or Ragslin, I should say. So he's a hobgoblin. Hobgoblins tend to be red. They're more human-sized, whereas ordinary goblins are obviously smaller, and bugbears are slightly larger. Now, hobgoblins are interesting because unlike the kind of masses that we associate with goblins, or the kind of like, gangs of bugbears, hobgoblins are much more oriented towards kind of militarism, in the sense that they want to exist as a kind of relatively organized military force. So one of the things with hobgoblins is they absolutely abhor cowardice in any form. So they have this sense of military honor that is the standard that drives them to do everything, and the heading that is used within within Volo's Guide to Monsters is brutal civility. So they have a civilization, they have this, but it's one that is effectively extremely martial. So for this reason, we could compare them to other kind of like warlike races, such as, I'm thinking of like the Krogan from Mass Effect, or the Klingons from Star Trek, that kind of thing, where warrior code, warrior honor is effectively the most important thing. So this translates into a respect for leadership and tradition, honoring the gods. They have their own gods, but as we've covered a couple of times now, Maglubiet is effectively the overgod of the goblins because he conquered all the others. refusing insult, rewarding action that seeks glory, and then the preservation of of this hierarchy, the preservation of the legion. Um, so basically, hobgoblins are interesting because everything focuses on war, and this is actually something that is focused on to the point where, whereas ordinary goblins are sort of raiders, as are bugbears, hobgoblins are organized, they are focused, they have their own kind of systems of fighting which they train in, including an unarmed combat tradition. They also study arcane magic to use that, so they have more advanced magic than, for example, a booyah might have. Although they also have like a quite strong priest caste as well. Um, so yeah, basically they are kind of the backbone of the goblinoid races because of this focus on organization.
I command you, corpse. Speak. Reveal truth to the absolute.
By Baldur's bones.
Nothing. Must be reading it wrong. Suga no Shukok.
This is the big boss. Strike him down.
Will is bloodthirsty as hell.
Turns to you, and the parasite squirms in your skull.
Dragonborn.
You taste the ale on his tongue and the bile in his soul. The visions cloud your inner eye for a brief moment once again. You see the hobgoblin bowing before the armored elf you'd glimpsed before. The elf speaks of the hunt for a great weapon and the rewards that will go to whoever finds it. The hobgoblin's eyes gleam hungrily.
Guess it doesn't matter what you are. You're a true soul. And that's good enough for me.
He doesn't speak his next words, yet they still rattle your skull from within.
You ever talk to a dead squid? Now's your chance.
Scroll, incense. Do you mean to speak with this corpse?
Damn right. I'm gonna make this carcass talk. Absolute says the dead squiddy had a weapon. I reckon the killer nabbed it and scooted off to that looter camp. We find who killed it, and we find who took that weapon. So settle in.
You suddenly feel a strange anxiety take hold. Not your own, but that of the artifact you carry. Somehow, it's afraid. The artifact does not want to part from you. It does not want to fall into the Absolute's clutches.
I know this magic. Hand me the scroll and I can do the talking.
Then take it. Absolute knows I'm not getting anywhere.
You read aloud the words on the scroll. The hideous corpse rises, tentacles writhing.
What were you doing in Faerun?
Raglan scowls, shocked by a question you shouldn't have asked, and a jolt shoots through you. The creature speaks in visions. A swarm of Githyanki dragon riders, silver blades held high, control panels melting, flesh pods spilled open.
I saw it too. Get on the hunt. They know something.
Why were the Gith chasing the ship?
You see dark tunnels lit by noxious pools of brine. The darkness spreads through the earth. The sky splits open and nautiloids pour out of a void that consumes the stars.
What in the...
Suspicion floods Raglan's mind. Your brain howls as you consider your final question.
Who killed you?
Another vision consumes you. A memory seen through the creature's soul-dead eyes. You see a clawed hand open a holding pod, devoid of flesh, only darkness.
Oh, come on!
The corpse collapses, silent once more.
No, we're not done!
Irritation eclipses his suspicions, and Ragslin's mind rests.
Riddles, all of it, and nothing to show for the trouble but rotting squid meat. No answers, no killer, and no damned weapon. The damned Drow was right. Can't let her get all that glory. The raid started already. Let's hope she's in trouble and needs help. You, get to the grove. Help the Drow Minthara kill the lot. Well, don't just stand there. Move!
Well,
Weapon the cult is after. Do you think it's our artifact?
That's the case. We've got more problems than just the worms and
She's fertilized. What you needing now?
goblins and drow working together, but why?
The Absolute's got room for everyone. Long as you don't defy her. And nobody's that stupid. If the Absolute says to take orders from a Drow, then we toe the mark. No questions.
I'm in need of a healer.
You look spiffy to me. What do you need a healer for?
I'm closing some gaps in my group. Everyone needs a healer.
Well, let me know when you find one. Priestess Gut's better at causing pain than curing it.
Bye. Okay, so that is the Hobgoblin King. So, we're going to, I think, whoops. Oh, yes, of course. We'll go over here. Because we're still looking for Halsin. We learned that Halsin turned into a bear, so used his druid powers to wild shape. So let's go to the walk pens. Hello, hello. What level are we again? Level 4? Yeah. And lo and behold, there's a bear.
Let's go.
The pride of the gate. Best foot forward.
How have we bound this weapon to us? No, we have not.
Careful, I bite.
Gonna be a hunter, so show it.
time to push my luck again.
Let us begin. Oh, okay, well. Fuck my drag, right? So this is something else I find kind of interesting. A lot of games have what's what I'm looking for? A lot of games have difficulty or refuse to represent harm coming to children for quite good reason. This game doesn't have that so much with particularly with its what's the word, with the tiefling kid that ended up dying in a previous episode. But here we have two goblin children, 1 and 3, maybe 2's around here somewhere. They are children, and they are going to run and alert the camp as to what's happening. And the game is not only giving us the option to kill them, but it's basically telling us we've got to do it. Which, I don't know if they'd get away with doing that with like a human child, necessarily. Karlak is angry.
In position.
Very well. A better position.
Oh well. You still blind? You are. Okay, well, you're not going to do very much then, are you?
Enemy's full.
More walks. I mean, we're going to be resting right after this anyway. Oh, goodness. Big damage. There we go.
Let's get going. Moving ahead.
Pardon the viscera. One should cherish all of nature's bounty, but goblin guts are quite far down the list. You aided a bear without knowing if it would savage you. A true friend of nature. Or perhaps a lunatic.
Or we just knew it was
Either
you.
way, I owe thanks. I am the druid Halsin.
I spoke to Nettie. She said you could help me with the parasite in my head.
Parasites in your head? You mean you have one of them? Oak Father preserve you, child. You're infected, aren't you? The Mind Flayer's spawn. But something's different. You're aware of the monster inside you. You don't bow to the Absolute like the true souls do. How is this possible?
I escaped from an illithid ship after being infected. Maybe the process was interrupted?
Perhaps. But I wouldn't want to place all my faith in blind luck. You weren't speaking lightly when you said you needed help. Let me tell you what I know. I've been studying these parasites for a while now. Ever since I discovered these so-called true souls are infected with them. Someone is using very powerful magic to modify these tadpoles. They're using them to exert control over the infected. I'm sorry to say, I can't undo that magic, which means I can't cure you. But that doesn't mean I can't help. I didn't find what I came here for, a way to remove the tadpoles, but I found the next best thing. I found out where they come from. That must be where these enchantments are placed on them. And it's where you'll find your cure.
Tell me what you've learned about the tadpole's origins.
I overheard that the cultists are sending all of their captives to Moonrise Towers. Innocents go in, true souls come out. Given that all of these true souls are infected, it has to be the source for this magic. If you want to find a cure, you must head there and discover how the tadpoles are being manipulated.
You seem to know a lot about this. Will you come with me to Moonrise?
I wish I could, but there's still work I've yet to finish. Blood I've yet to spill. I've no right to ask more of you, but if you could help me, I'd be free to join your journey to Moonrise. I cannot allow these butchers to threaten my grove. The natural order must be protected.
So again, it's interesting because a lot of the ways that when we think about druids, right, and we think about being devoted to nature or devoted to this kind of ideal, the way that nature is being conceptualized a lot of the time in these games is actually really really narrowly, and it's being defined according to a dichotomy that separates nature from the artificial. And the way that this often works is by assuming that you've got kind of nature and the artificial, and anything that is produced by people tends to fall into the artificial, which in a sense ends up separating people from nature, which isn't to say this is necessarily a bad way of framing it. I think it's the way that most people assume it should be framed, which I think definitely does something to our understanding of nature when we reduce it to being something that is completely untouched or kind of following, as Halson put it, a natural order. But a lot of the times when we talk about something like a natural order, that tends to be a projection of certain values onto the natural world. And those values can take kind of rather different routes. So you can either go down the kind of the route of harmony, which seems to be what Halson's druids are all about, like harmony with nature. But this harmony seems to not really be capable of dealing with, or actively ignores the fact that a lot of nature is based on predation, right? It's based on practices of predators taking advantage of their prey. And in a sense, I don't see what could be against the natural order about something like goblins, because they're living creatures, right? Unless we're going with the idea that creatures who are created by gods are separate from the natural order. And this brings up a distinction that was in 4th edition, where primal classes, like druids, like shaman, gained their power from primal spirits, which were directly opposed to the gods, with the idea being that they didn't want the gods interfering in kind of the material world, and the primal spirits kind of formed a buffer around the world that stopped the gods from having too much strength there. Now, that was canonical in 4th edition of Forgotten Realms. It isn't within 3rd or 5th. As we've talked about with the Second Sundering, there's been a big metaphysical reset. So, basically, I think what we're talking about here is, or talking around maybe, is the fact that if you presume that creatures who are created by gods rather than kind of born from the natural world are opposed to nature or are outside of nature, and therefore they have this choice that they can make where they either lean into that and seek harmony, or they move into the artificial and they create their own things, like civilization. It just seems really weird to me, because you then basically have the situation where very few races, in fact no races really, are going to kind of be part of this idea of nature, which then reinforces a kind of an even older conceptual distinction between kind of reason and emotion, between reason and passion, between the mind and the body, And these are distinctions that have run throughout quite extensively throughout the history of Western thought, famously appearing in places like Plato, Aristotle, appropriated by a lot of Christian thinkers who used those as kind of their sources of inspiration, among with many others. And it seems to me that this is just a very odd philosophy. Like, it's a philosophy that doesn't really call into question a lot of the categories that are just being used in a very everyday sense. And I think that one of the things that philosophy tends to encourage, or at least the philosophy that I'm interested in tends to encourage, is putting those kind of categories to question. But yeah, Hulson is basically saying we need to preserve the natural order. But it's interesting when you have these conversations about topics like the natural order, the way things are meant to be. Well, if things are meant to be that way, surely there's some sense in which they can't be otherwise. If the point that you're making is like a metaphysical one, which seems to be the case. Like, the natural order is a metaphysical order that needs to be respected, that needs to be protected. But it seems to me that we don't need to protect it if it's metaphysical. The only thing we need to protect it is an ethical or political order. An arrangement or a state of affairs that are produced through the ways that we cooperate or fail to cooperate with one another. That's a matter of politics. Or it's that we should do this because this is a good thing, in which case it's a matter of ethics rather than of metaphysics. So I think one of the difficult things with the Druids is that we're hearing them make what seems to be a metaphysical claim, but is actually an ethical one. And considering the lines of race that are being carved up, they're carving up the world. We've seen it from Will, who is supposedly this heroic character, who's then immediately, the moment a goblin's there, is like, let's torture it because it's not a person. There's not that much room for criticism or thinking critically about this form of race thinking. But we'll say, all right, how do I help?
My thanks. If you prevail, I'll owe you the debt of a lifetime. It's too late to stop things from here. The goblins are already marching on the grove in force. You must get ahead of them, muster the defenses.
Very well, I'll go rescue the grove.
Thank you. I know it's a great deal to ask, but the grove is everything to me. Hurry then, I will meet you there. May Sylvanus guide us.
Sylvanus guide us. Oh, we should loot some of our new friends.
What's in here?
Okay, let's go to the grove. Right, I believe, in fact, I think we have to rest first before we can do this. Yes. So again, the game is sort of, in a sense, fudging some of the timeline. Oh.
The air is heavy. Moisture drips down your forehead. Pain shoots through your fingers.
Blink away the discomfort.
The world swims as you close, then reopen your eyes. How long have you been waiting here? A moment? A night? A 10-day?
Mazathok. Can you feel it crawling through you? Tendrils squirming in your chest, gripping your heart, piercing your belly. Your bones popping, your flesh swelling. I can. I see it in you. I feel it in me. We are lost. I will be quick with my blade. First you, then the others, then myself.
Your minds intertwine. You sense a touch of uncertainty, a touch of disgust.
It's just a fever. Rest will break it. I think we'll be fine.
I cannot trust my own mind. So it seems I must trust yours. I will wait. But know this. I'm watching. If the sickness does not pass come dawn, I will end us all.
Sleepy time. Oh.
I came just in time. You are transforming.
I know your voice. I've heard it before.
Yes, you have. I saved you before. I'm here to save you again. Don't worry. You will not become a mind flayer. Not while I'm around. I'll protect you.
Take the hand offered to you.
We haven't much time, so listen closely. There is great potential within you. It comes from that parasite. Your instinct is to resist the power it gives, but you must accept it. Nurture it. I will keep it from consuming you. But for the sake of both of us, you must learn to wield it. A fight for the fate of Faerun. A fight we are losing. For now. You can change that. But only if you embrace your potential. I have to go. The enemy is closing in. I will be back. Wake now. You'll feel better. I promise.
Okay. Let's leave camp.
Wait! Bows down! Gods above! We took you for a goblin! Get up here! I want that gate sealed before they arrive. And we need to talk!
With haste.
Up we go. So before we forget,
Where am I needed? Oh, we gotta go right.
You don't have to keep checking.
Okay. Talk sense to you.
oh for goodness sake, there we go, right. Karlak and Co go over here, we'll go over this way.
Never mind.
Do a little quick save.
Need to find a way forward.
Where is Zevlor? There he is.
Seems like a good moment to talk.
Gods above, you're alive. A little light, just as the day seems darkest. I'd given you up for dead at the Goblin camp. I'm damn glad to be wrong. But what happened? We've seen them massing in the woods. Truly? Hells, I didn't expect it. We were almost ready to leave. Well, there's nothing for it now. A fight it will have to be. We threw them back once. If you're with us, perhaps we can do it again.
Do you have a plan?
What I have is no choice. We need to thin their numbers quickly if we're to survive. Every ounce of oil that we could spare has been buried out in front of the gate. We'll blow the horn to draw them in, and pray our fire arrows strike true. Your courage is catching, it seems. Or perhaps I've finally lost my reason. Make what preparations you deem necessary, and then sound the horn. Let's have this done.
Okay. Well, we're just going to go and blow the horn and get it done.
This is it. Everything turns on this. Get that damn gate closed! I know that you are all afraid. But I also know that you have been fighting your whole lives. We have never been handed the easy choices or the gentle paths. And this is no different. These creatures would take our lives, our children, our future, and we must resist!
A splinter of ice works its way into your mind.
A pretty speech. It almost brings a tear to my eye.
Now slit his throat and open that gate. The Absolute wants all of them dead.
As a cleric of Ogma, we're going to say no. I'll show the Absolute the power of a true god.
You cower behind a doomed god when the Absolute promised you such power? You will die here, and your god will die with you.
The fight begins. Okay, so let's see. Is there anywhere that we can go where we can have a little hide, maybe? I'm not sure. What spells do we have? Nothing that's going to be great at long range. Let's just fire. And then move back. Ooh, big jump. Oh. And we get to zoom in on that blood. Lovely. have anything that we can do? What about summoning? Just putting a greatsword down there. And then... oh, we have to get a bit closer. Sacred Flame! And they're throwing... he's throwing barrels with goblins inside. Oh, no, my poor sacred weapon. Spiritual weapon. Oh. Bullied. Bullied at the gig. So many goblins. Angie.
That won't work.
Karlak. Ouchie. My poor spiritual weapon. Gone but not forgotten. Okay. Do you have any fire arrows? Oh, you have a fire bolt. That could do it. No fire arrows, but a fire bolt. Just to get rid of some of those sappers. Let's see, sleep does 24 hit points worth of goblins, so that's... yeah, that's 16. Just get those three out of the fight. And while we're at it, get another spiritual weapon. Well, spiritual weapon is now the tank, which is fine, I guess. No more Spidey. Well, no more that Spidey. Well, it absorbed a lot of hits, I suppose. Let's get rid of that. Do I have any fire? Apart from my breath weapon? I do. Produce a little flame. Where is the buried thing? There it is. There's still a lot of them. Have you run out of goblins now? You have. Okay, good. Love that. Love that for us. You missed. Let's see. Dead now. Right, let's see. Can we actually get you anywhere useful?
Count on me.
I mean, we can maybe throw something. Do we have something to throw? Not really. Let's throw a great club and see what happens.
Got it.
Oh, well, that was alright. That was mighty alright. Not enough movement to jump, so we'll end our turn. Oh dear. The gate. Oh dear. Right. You're also going for... Well, you're not really going for the gate, are you? You're just there. Third time's the charm. Spiritual weapon. You threw acid on also yourself. Well, tactics. I don't know what soul branding does, and quite frankly, I'm too afraid to ask. Right. Okay, so as far as you can go, that's fine. It should be fine. Right, let's... Kaboom. My poor spiritual weapon. Right, Karlak. Can you... That's quite far, isn't it? Let's just send you down here. You're going to throw something, and you're going to throw... Let's see what happens when you just throw some leather armor at a goblin. Well, it's 3 points of damage. Just this hulking tiefling charging toward you and just lobbing a set of leather armor at you. Do those then. Sleep is great in Baldur's Gate 3 because you know exactly how many hit points the enemies have. Not so good in the tabletop, has to be said. She keeps soul branding him, but I'm not sure what that's really doing. Right, Wilfred. Should we get rid of Warrior Clack? Or almost get rid of him? Wait, did you get... No, 1 health left. Thank you, Wilfred. Work. Why? Okay. Oh, oh goodness. That's lovely. Right. Right. I've been using a lot of spell slots that maybe I shouldn't have been. She will brand everybody. Okay, Karlak. Let's do a little jumping. Okay, I think it's Minthara. 1 more Goblin and Minthara remain. Is there a way for us to get down there? No. Okay. Okay. For dealing with Minthara, we're going to turn on non-lethal attacks.
Again.
Down the hatch.
Let's just check that's still on. Whoops. Okay. Where's this other fellow? Oh, she's there, right. Goodness. Let's have Karlak go in first, just in case we accidentally push her too far for Karlak to reach. Okay, swing. There we go.
There's an illithid parasite in that corpse. You should take a look.
Ah. Well, despite the fact that we had non-lethal attacks on, she has now been marked as dead. That's somewhat unfortunate. So, for those who don't know, Night Warden Minthara... Oh.
That's the last of them.
Interrupted.
Timora, smile on me. They're dead. We did it. Watching gods, you did it. They name us outcasts. Hellspawn. Foul blood. But the blood of those who fell today ran as pure as any heroes. So I call us by another name. We are survivors. We are family. The road to Baldur's Gate is a long one yet, but you have earned every stride so far. Make your preparations. We leave as soon as we're able.
You. I don't know if you were sent here by gods, or fate, or sheer bloody luck. I don't care. You were a friend.
Close up of the
when
shoulder.
we needed it. And we won't forget that. Should you ever need it, you have family in Baldur's Gate.
But we need not speak of departures just yet. We have time. The road is clear. And I, for one, could use a bloody drink. We'll join your camp tonight, if you'll have us.
Where you bloody been, bitch?
By all the watching gods, that's Halsin.
He'll have some hard words for Korga, I expect. Go, speak to him.
Well...
You're the reason he has a grove to return to at all. We'll be here when you're ready to travel.
I was actually in the middle of doing something. If it's alright with you, Zevlor, I'm just gonna pop down here. So, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted with people being grateful to be alive. How selfish. The unfortunate thing is Night Warden Minthara, where is she? Here she is actually a potential companion. Unfortunately, the only way you can recruit her, at least originally, is by siding with her and slaughtering everybody in the grove, and that triggers Will and Karlak to leave you permanently. In fact, they turn on you and will try and kill you. If you try and use workarounds, they'll just leave your party. Workarounds such as, for example, killing them, having them be dead in your camp, and then bringing them back to life, and they'll just be like, hey, yeah, not really cool with this, bye. Interestingly enough, Karlak was quite happy for us to intervene and spare Saz's life. Will, however, was perfectly willing, in fact asked us to go and slaughter a whole bunch of goblins. Turning that on the tieflings, he's immediately like, no, they're people, how could you do that? The goblins may be presented as being fundamentally violent, but they're still people, and the fact that there is no restraint there, particularly when there are, like, literal children there, like, I know we killed, like, goblin children in the combat, but there's some racism going on there. Right, we'll be taking everything that she has, so I might be encumbered. No.
This one is a true soul parasite. It can enhance you. You can absorb its potential. Open your mind to it. You already know how.
Do I? I'm not sure about this.
You won't come to harm. I'll protect you.
I'm going to close my mind to the parasite.
You are not ready. That's all right. But try to overcome this resistance sooner rather than later. It will make things much easier for you.
Okay, so, Minthara's butt is just on the screen. Let's just give her some dignity. Yeah, so you can actually recruit her. My understanding is that with patch 5, I think it was, they've added in new ways to recruit her, one of which was basically like keeping her alive throughout Act 1, which we have failed to do. So we won't be enjoying the presence of Minthara for the rest of this playthrough. But a lot of her quest focuses on effectively kind of deprogramming her from the cult of the Absolute. And one of the interesting things is that doesn't actually necessarily make her a good person, because there's a lot of programming from her time in Menzoberranzan and being amongst the Drow that are also that are in her background. But we have today visited the Goblin Grove. We've talked a lot about the Goblin gods. We've talked about the representation in Volo's Guide to Monsters. We've explored, we've spoken to the Goblin leaders, and then we have faced Minthara and her horde at the gates of the Grove. This is where we're going to end the 5th episode. Slightly shorter than the previous ones. And when we record next, we will be dealing with some of the aftermath of this, maybe healing some people up, talking to Astarion, who is desperate to talk to us, and then returning to the camp to mop up what remains from there. But until such a time as that, I wish you all very happy holidays, and I will see you at some point in the new year. Goodbye.